Friday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope your weekend is off to a good start. Browns getting ready to head down and face the Bengals in a game that has very little to do with the standings. So we figure start things out here a little bit. We'll go bigger picture, and to do that, we head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Yeah, this is Jim from Columbus again. Honestly, I think the bar has been set so low in Cleveland for the last 25 years that some people, not all, but some people think Stefanski is the next coming of Paul Brown. I mean, the guy is below 500 now in almost 5 years here. He's been to the playoffs, twice? So Browns fans deserve better than this, and I'm tired of this crap. It's up to Haslam to, again, find a football person, get that talent in there, and find a doggone coach that can actually motivate people. That's all I got. Thanks.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in G. Bush from the Barbershop as well as the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. G. Bush, part of the reason the bar is so low is because things were so bad. You went a season where you didn't win a game, a season following that where you won one game. You went 1-31. There's a lot of truth to what he said, but you can't go from as bad as you've been, the Browns have been, to perennial playoff contenders. There's a middle ground, and we're caught in that middle ground right now. It was a bad season, without question, disappointing season.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are just so disappointed in this season because, we thought we were over talking about this. We thought we were over talking about the culture things. We if you got a season where you're 7-10 or something like that, or saying, you got a season where you go 8-9 or something like that. You can say, okay, well, you had a bad year. At least you have your quarterback. And a lot of people were if you would have had Deshaun Watson just play, decent football, like average football, right? And you go 8-9, you have a reason to kind of be a little bit optimistic and say, well, listen, at least he played 17 games. At least he got through the season. At least we understand that we got a quarterback now. You don't have any of those things. You've gone through Deshaun Watson and being injured in 7 games now. Jameis Winston, you've had in the game. He had some glimpses, but he's back to being the Jameis who turns the football over. And you still don't even have a quarterback or your idea who your guy is going into next year. So I think that's what fuels some of the fans' desperation. I think it fuels because it's not only that they didn't have a great year. They had an underwhelming year, and we thought we were going to be a Super Bowl contender. We've started to second guess some of the talent, and we still don't have a quarterback. So, unfortunately, what things happen is we start to look at the people at the top. We start to look at the coach and say, okay, 5 years, how much better are we in 5 years, right? If we would at least this year had, close to 8, 9, 10 wins, or even 7, you can stomach it a little better. But when you look up and you got 3 wins and you don't think, you're going to get any more than those 3 wins, that means you're closer than the 1-31 than you are to the team that was sold to us. That was going to be a team that was a playoff team at the bare minimum and at the high end, a Super Bowl contender.
So this is also as interesting. This is from Dog Pound Daily. Reasons why the Browns keeping Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry won't work. Number 1, offense is completely broken. Number 2, Andrew Berry has big failures on his Browns resume. Number 3, Stefanski has a discipline issue. For the second year in a row, Browns lead the league in pre-snap penalties and lead the league with 27 turnovers. And number 4, there is no quick fix for this team. I can understand people who have this opinion without question. I would think, as I thought through this, the reason the Browns' offense appears to be completely broken is they completely tried to build it around Deshaun Watson. They lost their identity running the football. They're not asking the offensive line to do the same things. That's a bad idea. Kevin Stefanski has no idea how to fix this hybrid offense because it's not what he knows. That's a problem. That is the core mistake that was made.
You take a look at it, and at least when you have an identity, you know what you can do with an identity. You can always say, this is what we do. This is how we are. I think one of the big mistakes was when Deshaun Watson was out for the year, Kevin Stefanski should have pivoted back to what Kevin Stefanski does best. It would have took a little bit of time, but everybody on the roster knows his playbook. They know what he wants to run. They've run it for multiple years. This is the first year Dorsey has been in the fold. I think they should have went back to that. Jameis Winston is a much better quarterback, running play action and minimizing his risk and throwing interceptions when he's in shotgun strictly. I think there's a couple of things here that when you do look at it, the people who are saying that Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry have to go, they've built a resume and they've built up some things against them that is very hard to defeat. The one thing that's hard to defeat is, where's your quick fix?
Yeah.
You take a look at the quarterbacks in free agency. Sam Darnold is probably, if I was the Vikings, I would franchise tag him or at least give him a 2-year deal. Spot Track has him at almost getting $40 to $50 million a year because of the year he had, and the Vikings are playing lights out football. They're going to go to the playoffs. Mind you, they got J.J. McCarthy behind him, hasn't started. They could bring him along slowly after that injury. You take a look at the rest of the quarterbacks that's on that list. Easton Stick, Jacoby Brissett. They're talking about Teddy Bridgewater now. Like, guys this is what your free agent class looks like. Outside of the top 2 picks, you're going to have Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Don't worry about whether the Browns should take those guys or not, because they won't be on the board. New York and Vegas will have either one of those 2 quarterbacks. I put it on Twitter the other day. Hey, which one of these 2nd to 7th round guys you plan on taking? Because you're going to talk yourself into Gabriel from Oregon. You're going to talk yourself into a Quinn Ewers or Carson Beck. Jackson Dart is a hot name that people have been talking about. Jalen Milroe. These are guys that people are already starting to say, hey, if we can't get our quarterback in DTR ain't it and Jameis ain't it, maybe we get one of these guys in the 2nd round. It's a very damning situation because you don't have the assets to get one of the best quarterbacks either via free agency or through the draft, and you still owe Deshaun Watson $72 million on your cap as a dead cap hit, and you're still going to have to find another quarterback. So to me, this ain't a quick fix. Not to mention Nick Chubb. All of a sudden, it's been hurt 3 out of the 4 years. All of a sudden, the offensive line looks like they're very, they're getting a little bit older. And on top of that, the JOK hit is one of the biggest things that nobody is talking about. And I get it. You don't want to speculate on something that devastating. But when you have a neck injury and you have one of the linchpin of what your defense wants to run, ask Jim Shorts how much they miss his speed and his instinctual play at middle linebacker. When you miss a JOK and all of a sudden Myles Garrett is a year older, you still need to find another defensive end opposite him. You're not going to sign Greg Newsome. Jed Wills probably won't be on this team. And you still need another receiver besides Jerry Jeudy. I can see why people are like, this don't look so good. I can see why they go that route. Now, look, there's another big thing is if you are Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry and you're the front office, if Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry get off to a slow start next year, I think it's a foregone conclusion that they're already gone. So if you draft a quarterback this year and you get a draft class in here, and then now all of a sudden you got to get rid of Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski in the middle of the year, that means you've ruined that whole year, and the next coach is going to want to have his own quarterbacking guy anyway.
Yeah, and again, to your point, there is no quick fix. Now, there are. You mentioned Myles Garrett. You have Denzel Ward. Who knows JOK? You have David Njoku, Jerry Jeudy. You got to find some linemen. The hallmark was you were winning up front. That's what Kevin Stefanski's teams did. They're not winning up front now. So I'm with you. Take a look at this. How good of a year is Denzel Ward having? He passes defended leaders heading into this week. This from the 33rd team. Again, he has the most of anybody. Derek Stingley Jr. from the Texans is 2 behind him. Ward has 19. Stingley Jr. has 17. 15 for Cam Taylor-Britt, who will be covering the Browns pass catchers. But you've wasted a really good season of Denzel Ward, and it's getting overlooked because you got 3 wins.
Again, that this is a testament to some of the guys that they had on this roster and why people thought that they were going to be a Super Bowl contender. You have another year where Myles Garrett has double-digit sacks. You got another year where Denzel Ward is one of the best shutdown corners in the league, and so it's a shame because we've consistently talked about this. We've talked about this with Joe Thomas and how these guys are putting up prime years of their career, and we see how it affects you when you miss. See, when you miss on other guys, when you miss on a Baker Mayfield, and I get what people say, well, that wasn't a miss. Baker's playing pretty good, and I think he's a serviceable quarterback that can win with a bunch of stuff around him. That's cool, but when you pass up Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, that is a miss unequivocally. These are MVP, franchise-type quarterbacks playing out of their mind. When you miss on those 2 guys in the same draft, you're in trouble, because what happens is those players around him at the time in their prime, the Denzel Wards, in their prime, the Myles Garretts, in their prime, the Nick Chubbs. When you have those guys, you want to capitalize, and everything comes to a complete crescendo at the same time. So everything is cooked correctly. The meal is coming together correctly. And now you can eat the dinner together as a family. But no, when you miss at quarterback, you have Nick Chubb's best years, and those seem to be behind him. Denzel Ward is seeming to be hitting his stride where he's one of the best corners. Myles Garrett, we've seen what he's done, Defensive Player of the Year. The problem is you don't have the other pieces around him. The offensive line is a little older. They peaked a couple of years ago. You take a look at the wide receiver core. They went for it with Jarvis and Odell, and that really didn't come to fruition with Baker. So you see these different groups, the receivers, the D-line, the linebackers, all these people who may have peaked at different times, and they didn't come together to make the Super Bowl team. So, it's a shame that we waste this type of performance from a Denzel Ward, because that could have been something that would have propelled us to a place where the Browns could have been a Super Bowl contender if they had the quarterback corrected, if Deshaun Watson would have done what most people at the time of the trade thought he was going to do, which was going to be a top 5, top 10, at worst, top 12 type quarterback, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, and now we're back to chasing the quarterback, which is how you get stuck where the Browns have been, and we'll tie it all the way back to the callers thing. The bar is low because until you find a quarterback, you're fighting to get back to mediocrity. When you find a quarterback, you can go from mediocre to a consistent playoff team. Let's take a look at the news and notes relative to the Bengals game. David Njoku, Martin Emerson, Cedric Tillman, all questionable, as is Jameis Winston now. He's listed as questionable to face the Bengals. Garrett, good to go. Shelby Harris has been ruled out. Kevin Stefanski did say he's hopeful that Emerson and Tillman will clear concussion protocol and be good to go. But again, we'll see. Make sure everybody's healthy. The biggest thing about these games is don't get anybody hurt that's going to miss part of next year.
Man, listen, this is one of the worst. I always remember this, and it's just part of my life. I remember 9/11 happened. I'm dating myself here. 9/11 happened in college. We were scheduled. I went to Ohio University, scheduled to play NC State. They were playing, at the time, Phillip Rivers was their quarterback. Wow, I am really getting old. They postponed that game on 9/11, postponed it to the end of the season. It was the last game of the season. We were horrible. We were 1-10, and we were scheduled to go down to play NC State. We get there, and I just remember, I'm like, man, I'm feeling great about myself. I'm like, well, look, we're 1-11, but I was a starter that whole season as a freshman. So I'm like, this is cool. I can work on my game. I can build off some of this tape. And in the last game of the season, I tear my ACL. So you tear your ACL and you have this dread in your mind, because what happens is you spend the entire offseason rehabbing instead of training. You spend the whole offseason not getting better. You're just getting back to where you were. And one of the worst feelings in the world, and it's like that for a lot of players, is playing in meaningless games and playing and then tearing something up, and then all of a sudden you're derailed for 6 to 10 months. And it happens in bowl games a lot, and that's why a lot of kids, in the NIL era, opt out to play in bowl games that are going to the NFL Combine or going to be NFL draft prospects, because they don't want to get hurt. The worst thing you could do in this football game, in a 3-10, 3-11 type game, is have a guy like Myles Garrett, or a guy like Jerry Jeudy, or a guy like any of these dudes that are going to be guys that you're looking to start next year, have an injury where they got to reset their whole training program to get back to where they want to go. I would, if you weren't 100% and you did not have some sort of incentive on the line. Now, if guys got incentives and contracts, and Jerry Jeudy's having a heck of a year, he's having a record year, I let those guys play. I leave it up to their discretion. But anybody that's borderline, that's on the injured list, that's had nagging injuries, I'm sitting them, I'm getting them healthy, and I'm getting them ready to go for next year.
G. Bush and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit about potential quarterbacks, plus supporting casts for the Browns quarterback. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back.
Head.
Hi, Betty.
Oh no, you wrapped yourself into a daze.
Holidays.
You need a break, so I got you Ohio Lotteries home for the holidays and Merry Money Scratch-Offs.
You could win up to $500,000 or $1 million. Oh, thanks, hon.
And they have games on the back. Has anybody seen my glasses?
We continue talking Browns with G. Bush from the Barbershop and the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Longtime Browns beat reporter Tony Grossi on the topic of Kirk Cousins. Cousins, benched in favor of Michael Penix, has not played well. It has been horrible, in fact, this year. Grossi on if Cousins can play better under Kevin Stefanski.
What do you think he would be with Stefanski, reunited with Stefanski? Would he look better than he does in Atlanta right now?
I absolutely think that,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It's a Kubiak offense that created Kirk Cousins under Kyle Shanahan. And also, think about this, a year removed from that Achilles tendon injury, maybe he'd have more mobility going into next year.
Kirk Cousins at his age is not going to be the quarterback that takes the Browns to the Super Bowl, but
Right.
he'll get you back to respectability, no?
Sure. And if you draft a quarterback, Kirk Cousins would be a pretty good mentor.
G. Bush, it's important to note Kirk Cousins did not look healthy, and he's coming back from what Deshaun Watson is coming back from, an Achilles injury, and his game is not predicated nearly as much on athleticism as Deshaun Watson. But Cousins is a guy, second year removed from Achilles. All right, he has a no trade. So he can say, you're not trading me, just release me, pay me my money, and the Browns could sign him to a similar type contract to a Russell Wilson. They're not trading for him because that's like $27 million that you're not able to do.
Yeah, we're not going to do that. This is where we're at. I look long and hard at the Kirk Cousins situation. When you look at it, the problem is this. You're still in the same boat. You're still in the, hey, if you look real hard and it's Kirk Cousins and it's Jameis Winston, what's the difference? If you look real hard and it's Joe Flacco and it's Jameis Winston, I don't know. What's the difference? If you want to bring in a guy that is struggled, he struggled with interceptions. He struggled with confidence. He struggled with reading defenses. Now, I will say this. He is the king of the play action. That is his bread and butter. He is a much better quarterback when you're able to turn your back to the defense and throw two spots to receivers that could be open in zones rather than sitting in shotgun and dropping. But then again, I think Jameis Winston is better at that. I think what we found out this year, and I want everybody to take note of it. It is very hard as a quarterback to sit in shotgun and the defense knows you're throwing the ball and you don't have a pronounced running game out of shotgun. You know how good you have to be every single play and how great of a passer and be above the shoulders, the mental game, as well as the physical game to be able to do it. Hey, Pat Mahomes doesn't even look great doing that 50, 60 times a game. You need a run game. You need some play action. You need some other stuff. So if they want to revert back to what Kevin Stefanski was going to do, sure. I mean, he may be a viable option, but he's not going to be a viable option if I got to pay him $27 million. He's going to have to come to us, on the path of least resistance, which is, hey, you get cut, call us up, we'll holler at you. But you got to think about it like this: Cleveland Browns need to, at that point, to have an identity in order for them to make that type of move. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Right now, they're shotgun, throw the ball all around. So that don't make sense from a perspective. They need to find that perspective of this is who we are. So then they can put together some plans to get back there, because they need linemen. They need another back. They need another receiver. They need a lot of different things to get this offense back up competitive to where it was running the football. And they need another run coordinator and possibly another offensive coordinator besides Dorsey.
Yep, I'm with you. I couldn't agree with you more. Along those lines, they asked this question heading into Week 14, and they ask it for every NFL team. Browns, is this the worst environment for a quarterback to operate in? Browns do indeed rank among the league's 5 worst offenses in supporting cast. That takes into account every team's average PFF ranking in rushing, receiving, pass blocking, run blocking. Bottom 5 are the Cowboys. Browns are tied with the Raiders. The Titans and the Patriots are below them. Those are not the neighborhood of offenses that you want to be mentioned in. Those are the struggling ones. That's how much it has sunk.
And at least, let's just be honest with you, at least the Cowboys got CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
At least they got that working for them. I agree. For me, this is one of the worst offenses to play in. Along those same lines that we just talked about, what is your identity? It'd be great if you had an identity, because then you could go into the draft and say, well, Stefanski's calling the plays. We know what he likes to run. Let's look at a guy that could be accurate, a guy that doesn't turn the football over, and a guy that's going to be able to be a motivator and get guys open and get to their first step, second, third step, fifth step, whatever the drop is, and get the ball out and be efficient and lean on the running game. But we don't know that now. And also you take a look at the offensive line. They've done better protecting, but the run game is non-existent. I don't know what their schemes are up front. I've been complaining about this for a whole year, and I was looking around and was like, what are you guys doing? I was watching them run zone plays, and they were not able to get to the second level. I've never seen people double team to nobody, and linebackers would just shoot in and make tackles. And it's unfortunate because people will be talking about it. Oh, Nick Chubb is washed, and Nick Chubb isn't the same old Nick Chubb. And I said, well, you got to understand, that Nick Chubb that was for 2, 3, 4 years ago, they had a completely different run game. They had a completely different physicality up front and a completely different scheme. Right now, I don't know what they're running. I don't like what they are up front. I don't like their identity up front. And so for me, until they get that fixed, until they get some more weapons, until they get an identity, this is going to be a place where young quarterbacks or quarterbacks in general are not going to thrive.
Yeah. And you look at it, Jerry Jeudy has been really good. Take a look at the numbers. One of 2 wide receivers to have a 200-yard receiving game this year. Top 5 in receiving yards with over 1,000 already. One of 2 wide receivers to have 1,000 yards and average 15 yards per catch. They kind of jokingly mentioned his Madden rating because apparently the Jets owner nixed a trade for him. Jeudy, though, talked yesterday about being mentioned in the same breath with the Chases, Jeffersons, and CeeDee Lambs.
I felt like I belong there. I've been working my tail off through this whole off season. And now it's finally showing. Being put in the position I'm in now it's time to take advantage of every opportunity come forward.
Now that you have 1,000 yards under your belt, have you thought at all about if the season ends with you being a Pro Bowler and just what would that mean to you if that happens?
Right now, right now I'm just thinking about finishing these 3 games off strong. Just we gotta get these last 3 wins. Even though we're not going to the playoffs, we just need to finish with these 3 wins. It's just important for this team or important for this locker room. So that's what I'm really focused on right now.
G. Bush loved the fact that he thinks he belongs in that. Confidence breeds success, and if you're a wide receiver or a skill position player, you better have confidence. And he seems to. That's good.
Listen, I'm happy for him because before the season, he was facing a lot of hate. He was getting hated on in Denver. He was facing a lot of different people saying that he didn't have the hands, he was inconsistent. And to their points, maybe he was inconsistent there. Maybe he didn't have the production that they wanted to out of a top 15 pick. And he was taken out. He was taken before all those guys, right? So for him to watch and him be a guy that won the Biletnikoff Award out of Alabama as the best receiver, known as one of the best route tacticians in the game, to see you kind of take a step back to a point where people laughing at you when they mention your name, that's hard to come back from. But I will say that he showed up and showed out this year. You take a look at what he was being given when it came to Deshaun Watson. I think he was averaging 38 yards a game. With Jameis Winston, over 112 yards per game, and now he has DTR, 3 different quarterbacks. And the way he's playing, he feels like, look, it don't matter who the quarterback is right now. I'm open. I'm always open. And there's times, look, that even Jameis Winston, who has done a good job getting the ball, have missed him on wide open plays as well. So DTR is coming into this game, and he's going to, be down. I don't know what David Njoku's status is going to be. Cedric Tillman has been in and out of the lineup. Elijah Moore has been hit or miss. But look, if there's one guy I'm trying to throw the football to and I'm going to get the ball to, is Jerry Jeudy right now. And by the way, the Madden rating is on the way, my boy. The Madden rating is trending upwards. You finish this thing with about 1,300, get you a couple more touchdowns. You already all-pro. Not all-pro, I mean a Pro Bowl. You get you a couple more in there, you'll be in that discussion. You know what I'm saying? Listen, Jerry Jeudy for 89. I like 89.
G. Bush, as always, great stuff, man. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Appreciate it.
Make sure you check him out, G. Bush, Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, Monday through Friday, 11 to 1. Also, The Barbershop. Make sure you check it out. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report and the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk. His thoughts on Browns owner Jimmy Haslam.
Jimmy Haslam is a bad owner. Shad Khan is a bad owner. And they have no one around them who is willing to say, hey, boss, you're probably not very good at this. Because at the end of the day, you know what they're good at? They're good at making money, and they're all making money. And that's the big ruse here. Yeah, our team stinks, but at the end of the day, we share all the big revenues. So we're doing just as well as the team that wins the Super Bowl. And we act like we're upset, we're not very good. Hey, come to my 350-foot yacht, and we can commiserate on how bad the football team is. So this is where the fans get thrown under the bus.
It's too bad.
If you're a fan of a team with a bad owner, you're stuck until the owner dies or sells the team. And there's no guarantee that if he dies, whoever gets the team in his will is going to be any better. And there's no guarantee whoever buys the team is going to be any better. It's one of the great problems of being a football fan. You're at the mercy of ownership. And ownership, with all the other turnover we see in football, ownership is the one thing that doesn't turn over very often.
Well, now let's welcome in Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report, the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. The only problem with Florio's argument Jimmy Haslam spends more money on the Browns than any other owner, significantly. So does he get involved in football stuff? I don't know, maybe. But he's not one of the guys who's looking to make a profit. He's pouring cash into the roster like crazy.
Yeah, I'm wondering where this tangent came from and how Haslam got thrown into it. Is it just because of the 3-win season, or in the Watson stuff? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just wondering where this came from, because there was a time where he was meddling. I don't know if we have as much proof that he has been meddling. We don't really know, right? We don't know where some of these decisions have come from, or it's not concrete, that he has interfered in football operations. I tend to think that Stefanski and Barry have kind of messed this up on their own a little bit. So
yeah, the only thing I would question is each of them reports to Haslam, to Jimmy. And I get it. You're the owner. You sign the checks. Is there a football guru who would be better off insulating you from those two? I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, it's a good question, because you're right. They do have to, report back meetings. And I understand, I guess, that level of wanting to know what's going on. I don't know. I wouldn't call him a great owner. I wouldn't call him the worst owner either. Because he is willing to spend to try to win. I mean, I think he actually really does care about winning. And I think that does give you some points. Now, certainly he's going to make a ton of money off of the dome and everything that comes with that in the end here. And certainly he knows how to turn a profit. He's, as far as a businessman goes. So I understand what Florio is saying there, but he appears to, at least to me, want to win. Now, has he been the best owner ever? Obviously not. But I don't know if I would throw him under as like a guy that doesn't care if they win, and that's kind of the box that he's putting him in there.
Yeah, that's the. I agree with you. I push back on that because his checkbook says very, very, very much differently.
Yeah.
This is interesting. So Jack Duffin from the Orange and Brown Report tweets this out: if Kirk Cousins becomes a free agent, costs $1.255 million for 2025. Much more appealing target as a one-year bridge guy would be kind of the Russell Wilson deal with the Steelers. You could use the savings to turn him into someone like T. Higgins in free agency, and he's the hypothesis here is it'd be Judy Higgins-Tillman. Your tight end would be Njoku. You go and you get Jones, and you got Chubb. You rebuild the offensive line in free agency. All right, I could live with that. I think you could do some things with that offense.
Yeah, the article that Jack did on this is terrific, and he even admits that he went a little kid in a candy shop at the end of it with the idea that you mentioned it, it's the Russell Wilson deal, right? Like it's the offset language. He has Kirk Cousins has a no trade clause, so he can force his way into being cut and then go where he wants to go, and the Falcons will pay the balance of whatever's left, right? So that would be the ideal situation if the Browns are interested in him. Certainly, there's a connection there with Stefanski. There is some question, at least in my mind, of what he has left, Dave.
Yep.
But I think you at least want to explore the situation, right? There's not a ton of great options out there right now for the Browns as far as quarterbacks, and this is another one that has been thrown into the mix. And financially, if he does get cut, it does free up a great deal more flexibility to do exactly what they need to do, and that's no matter who their quarterback is. They need to improve the complementary pieces around them, especially on the offensive line and in the run game, because it has been getting worse and worse for almost 3 years now, to a point where the run game is non-existent almost, and they have to fix that. No matter who plays quarterback, you have to have a better offensive line and a better run game, or else they won't have success. And it's not going to be a Hall of Famer, Dave, that's going to be quarterback next year. It's going to be a journeyman or a rookie or whatever it is. So you're going to need to have a complementary, run game to go with this to make it work on offense.
So you also wrote an article, things you think you know about the Browns. Increased pressure will force aggressive approach to finding a quarterback in 2025. Take us through that, kind of what you arrived at.
Yeah, I mean, Jameis Winston was, for a couple weeks, hope, right? We were hopeful that this could be a guy that could win games for you in 2025. And through the Pittsburgh game and even through the Denver game where they were very exciting and the offense was dynamic and explosive in a loss. And he turned it over a couple times, but there was still hope there. But then we've gotten two really bad performances, right? Just Pittsburgh and then of course Kansas City. And it just kind of their consistency in self-inflicting their own chances to win football games, their self-inflicted wounds, their continuous mistakes on jumping off sides, pre-snap penalties still in week 15, Dave. These are things that point towards coaching, right? And for me, it is just kind of like, okay, they're going to give you, it sounds like, right? It sounds like Haslam's going to give you one more year. But you're going to have to win. I don't see any other way around it. You're going to have to win next year. The only way I can see around them not winning in 2025 and keeping their jobs through their regime, talking about Andrew Berry and Stefanski here, is if they drafted a quarterback and during the 2025 season he showed or looked like he was going to be the guy. That would be the only other way that I think that they could have a losing record and keep their jobs beyond 25. So how are you going to do that? How are you going to, I don't think hitching your wagon to Jameis Winston to make sure that you get a winning record next season doesn't seem like something you want to, base your career or your job on. So I think they're going to have to get aggressive. And that means for me, either taking a high draft pick, falling in love with somebody in this draft, which isn't, terrific, at least at first glance, at the quarterback position, or really going after somebody in free agency that you really like, or a trade. I don't, maybe somebody shakes loose that we're not even aware of yet, but exploring Sam Darnold even. I think these are things they have to take seriously.
All right, another article, things you think you know about the Browns. One, fixing the run game. Two, thoughts about Andrew Berry in what you term, and I agree, is a must-win offseason.
Yeah, he has to be excellent in the draft. Andrew Berry does. And in doing that, he needs to fix the run game, and he needs to be excellent in free agency. And for both him and Stefanski, this is it. You have to produce a team on the field next year that is in contention late in the season. Anything less, I think you're showing the door. I don't think that the Haslams will be as forgiving with a, single-digit victory season next year. Maybe you can get away with 8 or 9 wins if it looks okay, but either way, you're going to have to figure this thing out. And as we've talked about, the options aren't great at quarterback, so you're going to have to figure out a way to do it. The one thing I would say is this is the reason you keep Stefanski, right? Is because he has been able to take average quarterbacks and get decent to good play out of everyone except for Deshaun Watson. So I think that is their best chance, and it'll be interesting. But they have to, once again, coming back to this, and this is the key, you have to surround whoever is going to play quarterback with as many weapons, a offensive line that fits conceptually what they want to do, which I don't think they have achieved this year. You need an identity offensively, which they don't have. all of these things need to happen in what is this critical offseason if this pivot to continued success is going to work.
So before I let you go, let me ask you this. When you look at this roster, did we grossly overestimate it? Did they grossly underperform? Can it be retooled, like we're talking about, into a contender? I kind of think it can be. I think it's kind of in between. I think we overvalued it a little bit, and I think they underperformed a little bit.
Yeah, I think we've seen some underperformance, and I think we overvalued some players. I think you're right. It's never as bad as it seems, right, or as good as you think you are. And I do think they can pivot and win. I mean, it's a team that won 11 games last year. There is plenty of talent. If you look at all levels of the defense, on the offensive side, you have your cornerstone pieces in place. This is about shuffling the deck. But they whiffed in key areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the offensive line. They wildly misinterpreted the injury timeline on their tackles, right? And they've changed conceptually what they do in the run game without changing the personnel to match it, which is like, it's hard to understand why they, how they could miss that, right? But all of those things, I think, are fixable in this 1 year where you're going to restructure Watson's contract. You will have some cap flexibility. It's not as dire as the national media would like you to believe financially. So, and you have a lot of draft capital. So if you do well in those things, yes, you can pivot and be competitive next year. It's not going to be a walk in the park by any stretch, but it's certainly doable.
So do you agree that I've said earlier and yesterday on the show as well, I think the error they made was trying to rebuild the offense around Watson. You move to an offense that Kevin Stefanski doesn't know how to correct what's going wrong with it, and I don't think Ken Dorsey's the answer, and I don't think he's a bad coach. I just don't think he's the right coach here.
Yeah, they put all of the eggs into that basket, and it's hard to blame them for that because, coming off of the year prior when the last time we saw him play was his performance in the Ravens game where it looked like he was coming back and then he had the shoulder injury and you had to give it every chance to succeed at that point, right? So the reshuffling of the staff and everything done to fit. And Watson had a ton of agency in this too. He had a lot of say in what they were going to run.
Yep.
Every step of the way. And it failed miserably. So you have to pivot away from that and back to whatever you think you need to be going forward. And I don't really care what that is, as long as you have conviction about it and then match the roster to that. Right now it just seems like a scrambled mess of direction, right? Pick a direction and let's go in it. But I agree with you that Stefanski has had success doing what he knows how to do and knows how to fix. So that would make some sense.
Brad Ward, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Brad.
You are the best, Dave. Thank you for having me.
Brad Ward, make sure you check him out. You can read him in the Orange and Brown Report. He is also the co-host of the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Lance Reisland, film breakdown, video analysis, how the Browns can help out DTR getting the start against the Bengals. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. A film breakdown, video analysis, how the Browns can help out their third starting quarterback of the season, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Lance, again, younger guy, not as experienced as either Watson or, Jameis Winston. When you look at that, what do you think with DTR?
Well, it's going to be interesting. So first, Winston made his mistakes all come from turning over the football. And obviously you can't play if you turn over the football. But Winston also maximized the skill sets of some of those receivers. He also made pass protection very easy on the offensive line because they know where he's going to be. So now DTR kind of goes back to the Deshaun Watson kind of idea of, moving the pocket, RPOs, lots of movement. So we'll see what happens because now this offensive line and the receivers have got settled in. We will see what happens moving forward. Going back and forth again. Now you're going away from Stefanski, what he does, and more of what DTR does. I'm not sure what's going to happen here. I know they need, something needed to be done just because they weren't protecting the football. But that's not all. That's not all Jameis Winston, and there's many other issues on this football team that need to address. But obviously, it starts with the quarterback and really starts with protecting the football. So we'll see what can happen. But DTR is going to first of all have to protect himself a little bit better. He's not a real big guy like you and I were talking about, and he's got to make sure he's making good decisions and they maximize his skill set.
All right, so three ways Browns can help him. Number one that you have is create short fields with defense and special teams. Take us through that and what you're thinking here.
Well, right here you get, obviously you're going to get a sack you're going to get pressure, right? So if they can create some second, third down, long situations, maybe they can create some turnovers, try to get the ball inside, like right here where Miles got that strip, before the snow started coming in that first matchup. So basically what's got to happen is that they have to figure out a way to shorten the field, and they have to maximize both their defense and special teams. Now, the defense has done their part. The special teams has been really, really poor this year, both in execution and alignment, things they can control and things they can't control. So they're going to have to be a lot better on special teams than they've been. They're going to have to be really good on defense, but the defense is even going to have to do more because as much as Jameis Winston turned the ball over, Jameis Winston is also going to get you points. So when you go into this game with the Bengals, who are playing better, and they scored 37 last week, they're going to score some points. And I'm not sure if DTR can hold his end of the bargain, where obviously Winston might turn the ball over, but he's also going to make some plays, and that's been his career. So defense, special teams, got to create short fields, turnovers. They got to help the young quarterback by giving him the short field and giving him an advantage when he gets in the game.
All right, so again, defense, special teams, it's the old complementary football. Number two on ways that the Browns can help out DTR. Maximize the skill set, and you put the note in here, he's more like Watson than he is Winston. So take us through what you mean with this.
Well, third downs are going to be here's what happens when you just straight drop back and you throw verticals, right? It's not really conducive to what he can do. Now, he can do that once in a while. This was on a rundown, in my opinion, for the Browns at this point in time. So the coaches got to do a good job putting him in situations. But things like this, 3rd and 3, maybe it's not a short pass. It's using his feet to keep the sticks moving. It's making enough plays to win. It's not about stats. It's about making sure you end every drive in a kick. It's about making sure you use his skill set, which is his feet. He's a very competitive guy. He can make all the throws, but he's not a guy you win because of. He's a guy you win with. So they got to, again, going back to the first point, play good defense and then maximize his skill set. Get him outside the pocket, change the launch point, help your offensive line, run the ball on first down. They really have to help this young kid and not make him carry the load. To come in and have to throw a 4 vertical route against a good Chief defense, it's not, in my opinion, is not really conducive to making him successful, setting that young man up for failure.
Well, you mentioned kind of his skill set in conjunction with the offensive line. Do you see some of the zone reads with him and Ford? Because now you have 2 younger guys, Ford, and you have some speed. I mean, without question, Jerome Ford, there was a metric, he had the fastest time, running. It was like 21 miles an hour last week. Do you see them potentially trying to do some of that with DTR and Jerome Ford?
Well, the good thing is it's not hard, right? So all you have to do is now you're just reading the backside end, and whether they're running zone, pin and pull, counter, whatever they're running, that's an easy adjustment, a simple call for the backside tackle to either get to the second level or reach if it's outside zone away. So it's not a real hard adjustment. They've done some of that with him in the past, and obviously they're going to go back to some of the things they were doing with Deshaun Watson. The thing about the run game, the read run game, that's not hard. The run RPO, it's like triple option. You have to run that every day. You have to learn how to pull that ball out of the gut of the running back. Where are the receivers going to be on the routes? That takes a lot of timing and a lot of execution. That's something they have not done in terms of executing at a high level, and they haven't been running very many of those RPOs. So I can see the zone read game or the read game where he's just reading the backside end because that's easy. The offensive line doesn't have to do anything else. Besides that, I think they got to stick to what they're doing. They can't keep changing whatever they think is going to work. They got to stick with it and fix it if they can. Changing won't lead to success. I've done that before myself. It doesn't help.
Well, and to your point, the RPO, the problem with RPOs is the offensive line doesn't know if it's, am I getting downfield? Am I run blocking? And we've seen enough of the offensive penalties kind of short-circuiting them this season.
Well, yeah, and when you're trying to maximize his talents, right? And let's be honest, DTR has a lot of holes in his game that he's continuously working on. But he was brought in to be a backup guy and a very serviceable backup, and I think he's really going to be good at that. As a starter, I don't know. I've been proven wrong. I've been wrong a lot in terms of analyzing players and their growth at times. But DTR they have to play good defense. They have to run the ball. They have to get some turnovers. Receivers got to make some catches for him. They got to do things that they've really struggled with this year. So it'll be interesting moving forward. Sometimes you get a spark and sometimes it goes the other way. All I know is with Jameis Winston, the offensive line knew where he was going to be. You knew you were going to get a lot of touchdowns, and you also knew you were going to get a lot of interceptions. So it's going to be interesting moving forward what DTR gives him, because as much as he might protect the football, I'm not sure he can give him enough juice to keep up with the Bengals.
All right, so 3.3 in the three keys to helping DTR. Quality first down runs or quick passing game on first down. Take us through the thought behind that one, Lance.
Well, you can see right here, right? Just get the ball out. Here's Jerry Jeudy just running a quick hitch, and then run here. Going back to last year where they used to run those counters and big personnel groups, and those are things they've kind of gotten back to a little bit. Again, just a simple hitch here by Winston gets him in rhythm, first down. And then again, watch Teller pull around the edge here. This is what they did well for so many years, and they went away from when they brought Dorsey in terms of the counter run game where they were pulling the guards or pin and pull or regular power. All those things they did really well, and they kind of had an identity they've gone away from. I think to protect this young guy, not only will the run game help him, but it'll shorten the game. It'll keep the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands, not let Jamar Chase get going. They have to play close to the best. This is not a game you worry about the score. You worry about the final score. And if it's 2-0, you take it and you move on, because the Browns are going to have to figure out a way to stop the Bengals from scoring and scoring themselves. And I think if they can get the ball out of his hands quickly and get the run game going, obviously that'll be helpful.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So basically what you're talking about is not getting behind the sticks on first down. Make it second, third, and manageable and allow DTR to kind of go from there. Lance and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, film breakdown, video analysis of Ohio State. Three keys that Ohio State must do Saturday to beat Tennessee in the college football playoffs. Straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Ted.
Hi, Betty.
Oh no, you wrapped yourself into a daze.
Holidays.
You need a break, so I got you Ohio Lotteries Home for the Holidays and Merry Money Scratch-Offs.
You could win up to $500,000 or $1 million. Oh, thanks, hon.
And they have games on the back. Has anybody seen my glasses?
We turn our attention to Ohio State getting ready to host the Tennessee Volunteers Saturday night in the college football playoffs. Lance Reisland comes back in with us. And Lance, home game, so that's a big key. Expected to be cold weather. But when you look at this, as is usually the case in football, Buckeyes got to get it done up front.
Well, two things got to happen, right? So they have to challenge the Tennessee Volunteers up front. They got to, especially in the trenches, obviously, but they cannot do what they did against Michigan. They ran the ball 26 times, and 14 of them they ran directly at Graham and Grant, those All-Americans for Michigan, to try to prove their toughness, in my opinion. And toughness doesn't mean you're going to, you have to knock the guys off the ball. That's not who they are. That's not their identity. They need to do what they do, which is outside zone. They also need to get the ball to the flanks. Now, Tennessee is really, really good against the run. They have an outstanding defensive line. 3 seniors. James Pierce is an All-American. He'll be a first-round pick, top 10 pick. But the secondary can be exposed. So it's a question of how tough did the Ohio State, how much do they want to prove? If they try to prove that they can run the football, that'll cost them the football game, in my opinion, just like it did against Michigan. They need to keep the run game alive, but they need to do what they do best, which is perimeter finesse football game. Doesn't make you soft, it makes you smart. You play to your strengths. The strengths of the football team are the receivers, and obviously the weakness of the Tennessee defense is that secondary. They've given up a lot of plays, and their 2 losses to Arkansas and Georgia, they gave up a lot of passing yards. So this is an opportunity for the Buckeyes to get back on track, but they can't, they got to tell themselves not to be out tougher. They got to outplay the Volunteers.
All right, so the 3 keys for Ohio State to beat Tennessee. Number 1, crowd the line of scrimmage and stop Dylan Sampson. So take us through this and what you see here.
Well, Dylan Sampson, they're going to run the counter here, and then they're going to, when you pull the guard and the thing, and then they run dart where they pull the backside tackle. Now, Heupel's a guy, he's a disciple, he's been around a lot of guys. So right here is what this is what they did again in Michigan. They got that 8th guy in the box. So this is what they did this year. Again, here's the counter with backside guys pulling. You're going to see the dart where the right tackle pulls around. And then you're going to see what I think the Buckeyes need to do is get that 8th guy in the box, which is the red circle. Now they get 8 in the box. That's the guy who blows everything up and makes a play. Now, Dylan Sampson's a guy who has 1,485 yards rushing. He's got 22 touchdowns. Tennessee does really good job with multiple gap schemes. Like I said, Josh Heupel's a guy who's been around. He's been around a lot of really good offensive coordinators. They're going to use tempo. They're going to use speed. They're going to use a bunch of different things. Defensively, they got to put the pressure on Nico Umiliava because he's an inconsistent guy. But this Dylan Sampson and this offensive line led by 4 seniors, and they're 325 across the front, they will run the ball down the Ohio State's throat if they can't stop it. So that's the first thing I got to do is get that 7th, 8th guy in the box, stop Sampson, make Umiliava beat them. That'll be a good start. That'll be that you'll know that early if they can stop the run.
All right, so number 2 on the 3 keys for Ohio State to beat Tennessee in the college football playoff. Attack the middle of the field on offense. So take us through that.
Well, you're going to see right here, so you're going to see this is seam route by Georgia here, and you're going to see this seam route when it opens. You're going to see the middle of the field right there. And what ends up happening is that when you are trying to stop the run, sometimes you get 2 safeties. You can see they have 2 safeties there. By having 2 safeties, the middle of the field. Now, there's 2 different areas of the middle of the field I believe they can attack. They can attack off play action. The Tennessee Volunteer linebackers are very aggressive, so if they see run, they're going to step up. Their safeties also play very deep. So not only can you get the ball between them vertically deep, like right there, but you can also throw it over top of the linebackers and in front of the safeties with those layered routes that Chip Kelly likes to run. So I think, obviously, first thing they got to do is they got to stop Sampson. And then in the pass game, they got to get those 3 really good NFL receivers, especially Jeremiah Smith. They got to get him in the slot. They got to get him on that second level, and they got to get him in the middle of the field. That's where they'll have their most success. That's where Tennessee struggles the most. If you can see that linebacker trying to cover, that's what ends up happening in cover 2. That linebacker has to get vertical. It's just a mismatch against Ohio State. Again, Ohio State has to run the ball to keep things honest, but they have to throw the ball to win.
Let me ask you this. Just in talking about how good that front 7 is, do you do tunnel screens and little screens to try to get the ball on the perimeter quickly? I'm with you. That I thought against Michigan they needed to get the ball in the hands of their playmakers a little bit more. And I know they like Judkins and I know they like Henderson, but get the wide receivers out in space. If they want to play in a phone booth, take it outside.
Well, it's interesting. So we used to say like outside the phone booth. So Tennessee, they're very good inside the phone booth in terms. They got three of the 4 guys up front that they usually. It's an odd front, but they'll usually have 4 guys on the line of scrimmage in different fronts. But the three guys who are not James Pierce are seniors. They're all 300 pounds, which means they're grown men. They're 23 years old, just like the offensive line. They have 4 seniors that are 23 years old. So I think that's why I think the vertical game is going to be really good. That second level of Tennessee runs very well. And when those veteran guys see those tunnel screens are led by the offensive line getting out quickly. I think Tennessee can run those down. They run very well at the second level. Where I think I struggle, like I said, is that over the top of them in the middle of the field. They're not a super heavy pressure team. They got a chip on. They create pressure, but not a ton of blitzes. So that second level will be able to run some screens. I think, like I said, play action, middle of the field, and rip it down that seam between those two safeties, I think will be their best bet in the passing game.
All right, so the third key of the 3 keys for Ohio State to defeat Tennessee, create a plan for James Pierce. Take us through this one.
Well, this guy is a prototypical SEC lineman, 6'5", he's 243 pounds. He's an absolute relentless. So he'll be down in a 3-point stance here if they're in a forefront. He'll also be in an up stance right here like he is in an odd front. They'll use him a bunch of different ways. So once again, it's really just a multiple front. They're on paper, they're an odd front, which means there's 3 down linemen, but they run a bunch of different stuff. But what they're trying to do is they're going to create ways to get James Pierce either on a tackle one-on-one or a back one-on-one. Now, what the Buckeyes got to do is that Pierce is only 240 pounds, so they got to use Fryer. They got to use those big tackles, 300-plus tackles, and run directly at him. That's the first thing they got to do. If passing the ball, they got to chip on him either with a tight end or a back. And then most importantly, get the ball out of Will Howard's hand and get it in the space with those elite receivers. And again, run right at him. Don't run away. He's a 4.49 guy, so he'll chase outside zone away, things like that. You have to do a bunch of different things to affect him. The first thing you got to do is you got to lean on him with those big bodies. If you don't have a plan for this guy is a top 10 pick. This is a game wrecker. So this is a guy who, no matter what your offensive plan is, he will ruin it because he will be in the backfield, both run and pass. So they got to have a big plan for him. Make sure he's doubled, especially on long yardage situations.
All right, before I let you go, what are you paying attention to early in this game to get an idea if Ohio State is doing the things they need to do to beat Tennessee?
Well, there's no question about it. Defensively, can they hold up against the run? So I think Tennessee's going to come out with same thing. They're going to run the ball vertically right out of Ohio State. They're going to challenge Sawyer, JT Emiliab. They're going to challenge these guys because they've struggled a little bit in the run game. Offensively, I want to see if they're going to try to say, we're as tough as Tennessee, or do they play to their strengths, which is running the ball, but basically they're throwing the ball to set up the run a little bit. So they're going to have to rely on Will Howard. So his ability to make plays will be very, very big. But again, like you said earlier, it really comes down to, can they hold up inside? If they can, I don't think weather's going to be a big deal. Tennessee wants to run the ball. That's where their strength is. So I really think it comes down to, can Ohio State play to their strengths, and can the defense stop the run game that's going to come right at them with a monster offensive line and an NFL running back.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. Great stuff with the film breakdown and video analysis for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you back here Monday at 4 on Sports for CLE.